That's a really great question, and let me, for those of you who aren't familiar with our so-called castle doctrine in Pennsylvania, it's one of the least sane laws that we have passed in my time in the legislature. It passed back in the spring of 2011 over my objection and over the objection of a number of legislators. And you're right, it does not, it does away with the duty to retreat. What had existed before that law was passed was a rule that sufficiently protected people who felt that had a reasonable fear that they were threatened with severe bodily injury, that they could defend themselves. But this law creates a presumption that if someone is, for example, comes onto their property, their front porch, or the deck of their house, that they're there to do bodily harm to that person who owns the house, and therefore they can use lethal force. And it's really an awful, awful law. And in fact, when it was passed, the day it passed the House, what we call on the floor of the House, it's called interrogation of another member. It sounds a little bit more ominous than it actually is. I interrogated the member whose bill it was, and he's now a member of Congress, actually. And
was German?
no.
It's always German.
No, yeah, you're right. No, it was Representative Perry at the time. And it became very clear in the course of our conversation back and forth that he really didn't understand what the full impact of this law was going to be. So my answer to you is that we should repeal that law. That it's called Act 10 of the 2011-2012 session. It was a huge mistake, and it should be repealed. It's a very tough battle in Pennsylvania to do that, just like it's a tough battle in Pennsylvania to get something as simple as universal background checks done. And it's true. 2/3 of my colleagues will not vote for it at the moment. But there are a lot of things in our history that were hard. A lot of things that were worth fighting for that didn't happen overnight. And I want to say this particularly to you, because you are our future, all right? And your generation is the future. And just because it may be hard for our generation to get these things done, doesn't mean we should stop trying. And it certainly doesn't mean that you should lose hope, because I think these things will change. And I'll tell you, I said this a couple weeks ago, when I was your age, I could not ever have contemplated that the United States would have an African American as president. And when I stood there on election night in 2008, and I saw Barack Obama walk out into that park in Illinois, in Chicago, as the president-elect, it was kind of hard to beat back the tears. Change is possible. And I don't want you to ever lose hope in that. And that was a great question.